Hey everyone, and welcome to Doha Hamad International Airport, where after a very long flight from New York, I'm feeling a lot like this right now. Fortunately, this is a short layover, and I get to spend the next 2 hours in the world-famous Qatar Airways business class lounge. As I mentioned earlier, this is the second part of my journey from New York, and if you watched my last video, you'll know that I flew here with Qatar in their fantastic Q Suite, and I'll be continuing on to Goa in India. Qatar operates a wide variety of aircraft, but for the next leg of this trip, I won't be flying on an A330 or a 777. Instead, this short hop to India will be aboard a narrow-body A321. There's been a lot of criticism of Qatar's narrow-bodies, but as you've probably gathered from the title, this flight was a disaster, but for an entirely different reason. There's 12 business class seats arranged in a 2-2 configuration on this plane. Now this is a far cry from the luxury I just experienced aboard the Q Suite, but I'm so jet lagged at this point, I could really care less. With that said, these seats are basically just big, plush armchairs with a ton of legroom. The storage isn't the best, but you have universal outlets and USB plugs to charge your electronics. Considering this is only a 3.5-hour flight, I'm really not that disappointed so far. The hard product isn't that glamorous, but the service on board is still top-notch. We taxied out to the runway on time, and everything was going according to schedule. I love to fly, but I'm just ready to touch down in India and enjoy the beach. Now that we've reached cruising altitude, it's time to get comfortable. These seats obviously aren't lie flat, but there's still a decent amount of recline. The controls are down to your left, and you can even extend the footrest. The headrest is also adjustable, and over here to the right, you have a personal reading light. I know that some of Qatar's narrow bodies don't have IFE systems, but this one had a screen right in the armrest. On these shorter flights, Qatar gives their business class passengers these little amenity kits that are stocked with all the essentials. You're also given noise-canceling headphones. In no time at all, the crew came around and served everyone a drink of their choice and warm nuts. I was still pretty full from eating in the lounge, but the food was so good on my flight from New York that I just couldn't pass up the dinner service. There's one bathroom in the business class cabin, and it's fully stocked with razors, toothbrushes, and lotions. It was also kept impeccably clean throughout the entire flight. I was really impressed. After dinner, the cabin lights were turned off, so everyone could get some rest. And soon enough, we had crossed into Indian airspace, and we began to make our descent into Goa. This is when everything started to go downhill. As we were about to land, we flew through extremely thick fog, and at what felt like the very last moment, the pilot pulled up on the controls and aborted the landing. Now, I didn't manage to film any of this because I was pushed back into my seat and was trying my best not to soil myself. It was very scary, and for a moment there, I thought this might be the end of NYC Flyer. After we gained some altitude, we circled the airport for a bit, and the pilot announced that we'd be diverting to another airport. Instead of touching down in Goa, we'd have to fly an hour and 20 minutes to Kochi Airport in Kerala. For someone who had just spent practically the last 24 hours in airports and on planes, this was not welcome news. And from the collective groans heard throughout the cabin, it seemed like everyone else shared these sentiments as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kochi Airport. The local time is 3:48 in the morning. For safety, please...
That's right, it's almost 4 in the morning and we're not where we're supposed to be. At this moment, the crew hasn't announced what's going to happen and everyone is pretty much clueless. There's even rumors swirling about the cabin that we might need to board buses and drive to Goa, which would take about 19 hours. After 2 hours of uncertainty, it was finally announced that the plane had been refueled and we'd be heading back to Goa. We're up in the air again, and I'm praying that there's no more delays. I'm tired, grumpy, and I know that I've been moaning for a while now. But I want to stress that I'm very grateful that the pilots chose to be safe on this flight and didn't risk landing in bad conditions. The cabin crew were also wonderful and were very professional the entire time. There was one instance before this whole fiasco happened that's worth noting. Before our first attempted landing in Goa, a passenger from economy basically demanded to use the business class lavatory. The flight attendants were very polite in explaining that this was only for business class passengers, but the person still threw a tantrum and was exceedingly rude. The cabin crew kept their cool and remained professional, and eventually the lady went back to her seat. Well, those happy claps can only mean one thing. This odyssey is over and we've finally made it to Goa. I'm completely exhausted, but I'm very thankful that I happened to be in business class. I'm sure this grueling flight must have been 10 times worse in economy. In all, this diversion tacked on about 5 hours onto this flight, and I can't wait to lie down. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe. My upcoming videos will be covering many of India's airlines. This was quite an adventure, and you won't want to miss out on these next trip reports. Thanks again, and I'll see you later.